Oh, yeah, previously.
I think my
Yeah.
question got answered, but this would affect current employees,
Yes, it would,
but not retirees.
yes. No, what about the current employees who are career employees who are not paying in? It would not affect that.
If you're a current employee and you're not paying the 1.45% Medicare tax,
Right.
You're not
it
eligible.
doesn't affect you, you're
It
not
does not,
eligible.
so it doesn't affect all current employees. It only. the
Only
current-
those who are eligible.
The current employees who are
Paid.
career municipal employees or state employees and haven't had any outside service would not
Right.
be affected.
Or they've stayed in North Reading their
Or
whole
stayed
career.
there, right, the whole career, right. If they had switched and we started
Yeah.
after, when was the date that wasn't that long ago?
It caught me,
It
that's
wasn't
all I
that
know.
long ago.
I know that typically you look at that where you may have someone who's been in teaching,
Right.
or maybe in the DPW where they've worked their whole career, they wouldn't be eligible.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Delaney.
I'm gonna be voting opposed to this, just because I'm not, it's gonna have an effect on employees that are here now, and I don't, I'm just not comfortable with it at this point, but that's fine, move on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
4-1. In favor. Okay, that it? On the public hearing?
Actually, this is something that the legislature did fairly right.
The what?
They did a fairly good job with addressing the issues
Right.
in section 18, coming up with 18A.
Do we not have
Greg,
overall?
you know what might be worthwhile, adding to that presentation, if you're gonna use it at town meeting, is, the slide showing the percentage of
Yeah.
employees and retirees. It is a big number. Okay, next item on our agenda.
Mr. Chair, before we go there,
Oh, I'm sorry.
unless I'm mistaken, don't we also have the established police equipment revolving account?
Oh, yes,
deal?
right.
Oh, sure.
Oh, we did do that? Right.
I thought there was two.
You're on the ball,
on that. It said one.
You're right.
Thank you, Sean. So this was related to money acquired from towing, basically?
It is, create a special account to collect monies or fees from towing companies for services initiated by the police department. Funds would be dedicated to a police equipment fund utilized for the purchase of equipment by the police department and the performance of police duties, functions, and services under the authority of the chief of police. So it's basically identifying a revenue source that did not exist before we entered into a new contract for towing services and dedicating that specifically to assist the police department.
How or why was it chosen to be police equipment?
Oh, it's just a proposal. Just a proposal. You can, if you want to revise it, I'm sure, you know, that's your right.
couple of questions about.
Yes, John.
Would the towing company be raising their fees? Where does this money come from? In other words, if they charge $100 for a tow, are they now gonna charge, just for example, $110, and $10 would go to the revolving fund, or would they take 90 rather than the full 100?
Why don't I get you that information?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know some
Why
of that
don't,
information.
before I, yeah, I've got a whole file on the police towing, and Selectman O'Leary had raised the question earlier, I think I need to give you some information at the next meeting on that issue, so that you're up to speed on it, I just don't have it with me tonight.
We'll postpone making a decision on this until.
I have another question too.
Go ahead.
I have
Fire
another
away
question
with the
too.
questions, yeah.
When somebody has like AAA towing, how would that come into play here? When they don't pay the bill?
It doesn't.
Doesn't,
It doesn't.
no.
It's only if, in fact, the unfortunate person who broke down and had an accident has to be towed.
Impound,
That's the only time it would come into play?
Yeah, that's when the police orders the tow,
right.
not when you break down and you call AAA, but police orders to tow because you've had an accident, slid off the road.
No, I was thinking of an accident and you
Right.
call AAA, which is very common, very, very common.
So the town-
If the monies don't flow through the police department or the vendor, then we would have no right to it.
Okay, I was just wondering if, you know, because I wouldn't want to see an assessment back to the person from AAA.
Sure.
Yeah, no, whoever does the towing for the town has to file their rates with the DPU, State Department of Public Utilities. They have to file their rates, they're on
Right.
file. They generally have to file them with the police department also.
Hmm.
Currently, there's a rotating basis with 3 carriers in town that have towing rights, that participate. None of them historically have ever paid the town anything. You know, the town never got anything, they get,
Right.
the towing company's got the
Really?
towing, storage, and fees. No, no, it's a,
And it was a rotation just because of that, right?
right, it was a rotation
Supposed to be.
because you actually had 4 at one time, 4 eligible, 4 or 5. Maybe 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eligible companies at one point, eligible and on the list, or the approved list, because they were on the DPU list, approved list with the police chief, on a rotating basis. And then it's dwindled down to 3, I believe, now.
We had
Two. There's
two
3.
respondents to our
Right, but
request.
there were 3 in the rotation up to this point, of which there were side deals made between some of the other carriers to have one of the major carriers in town handle their calls if they couldn't do it. But it's done just on a rotating basis, and all fair, supposedly.
Give me some historical perspective as to why the town wasn't receiving any.
It was never the practice of municipalities to do it. It was basically a
Town-
service by local towing companies
most
to have the
communities do.
DPU rights within their communities or within a certain radius, do the towing, be eligible to tow for the towns.
You still have the window open.
If you look at the city of Boston, they have their own,
Cold down there?
Well, you just turned the heat on, so.
Energy rebates.
the city of Boston has their own towing unit,
cold?
and their own towing yards, and they charge everything.
Yeah, my feet are chilly.
Yeah, no,
Most
I know.
municipalities did not. Most municipalities never had any arrangements for that. It's of late that it's coming into being.
So currently, we've received 2 quotes from 2 companies that are willing to provide the service with a percentage back to the town.
No, I've awarded it to a single vendor who is providing the greatest amount of return to the town.
And it's already been awarded.
Correct.
Are we
I've
see-
awarded the contract.
Are we receiving any monies from them?
I think it just went into effect, let's say earlier, February 1st. It just literally went into effect a very short time ago. But a decision was made between the chief and I to really consolidate this service in one vendor that we could rely on 24/7. And again, have a formal agreement, a formal arrangement where the town is receiving something back for these services.
Who's the vendor?
What's that?
Who is the vendor?
North Reading Auto.
Yes.
Bay
But
State,
they have another,
Bay State towing.
they go by Bay State Towing,
Bay
that's
State
it.
towing, North Reading
They
Auto.
go by a different name, that's it. Bay State Towing.
How long is the contract?
I think it's initially for 1 year, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to reassess it at the end of the year and see whether we need to tweak it or any changes we needed to have.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you can answer the question next week in relation to the request for quotes and a request for
Sure.
proposals. Because a request for quotes, you're not necessarily gonna have anybody bare their entire soul. That's to get a flavor for what might be offered in order to get the contract, whereas if you get a request for proposal, it's more of a firm.
It was my recollection was it was a very detailed document that was put out there. There was a lot of effort that was put into producing a document to give everyone, so to speak, a level playing field. And, but like I said, I'll do some research and report back to the board at the next meeting.
Could you also find out, Greg, what that percentage would be?
Yeah.
You know, 10%, 15%, whatever?
Yeah, no, that was actually included in the price. So they had to specify that they would refund the town or pay the town X amount per call.
Now, these carriers are supposed to report to the Department of Public Utilities annually how many tows they do for the municipalities, and report annually what their revenues were. That's not to say that they were all being reported on a timely basis, because I don't think DPU ever really did a very good job of policing those reports, or,
Well, how are we keeping track of what they're towing now?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Selectman Delaney, I missed that.
Isn't this towing to, they used to tow to a specific,
What's that?
they used to tow to a garage.
This is, so when the police department makes a call for service, they know that result of that call for service, there's going to be a payment made to the town for that service. So, that's,
Oh, I understand, but how are we, what's our checks and balance
yeah,
in terms
I'll
of
find,
how the police are keeping track of how many
that's a
tows?
question I'll ask of the chief to
I
give
wouldn't
me that.
rely on towing company to
No, I
report it
understand.
to DPU.
I understand. I appreciate your interest, and I'll get you that
And
information.
as far as establishing a revolving fund for the funds to go into a revolving fund for the suggested purpose, I'm not so sure that that might be the most needed area for the funds, but it's prioritizing. And if you think it's gonna be $25,000 a year, I don't think our police department has been wanting over the years for any real equipment, anything they've needed, we've been able to provide. We might want the 25,000 just to go to the general fund. Now, we
Sure.
might want to earmark it
That'd
for
be my
something else.
preference.
You know, at least in the initial stage, I don't want to necessarily earmark it right now, because I wasn't even aware that we had the new revenue stream.
Right.
And we find out many times a grant comes in the police department and they purchase something and find out about it after the fact too.
So I'm not so sure, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I'm not so sure I'm in favor of it yet, because I haven't given it any thought as to where, if I have an additional revenue stream, you say it's approximately 25,000 you're anticipating?
No, it's not that much.
Oh.
Let me get you some numbers on it, rather than, again, speaking off the
I would,
cuff.
I don't know if we should pull this. I'll leave it on and pass it over.
We have next Monday, we'll make a decision.
Well, it's gonna be printed and ready for signature, right?
Sure.
I say we pull it.
Could I speak?
Yeah.
To speak to Steve's issue, right now, I don't have a problem with it going to a revolving fund, because, I can see where they could use this for purchasing ammunition for the rangers, et cetera, and like ongoing training. This, not to go out and buy everybody a new whatever, but it could be used to supplement the police budget for purchasing of, ammunition's very expensive. I don't know exactly what they're spending now per year, but that would alleviate part of that cost of the police budget. So I don't have a problem with leaving it there.
I might wanna put it into a sidewalk fund,
Well, you may.
No, I'm just saying-
No, I'm just saying, I don't have a problem with,
opposed to prioritizing
as
the revenue coming
proposed,
in.
yeah,
I think
no.
I have other things that
Right.
kind of rise above.
well, either way, you have to buy the ammunition. Now, this
I
is the way
wanna
to pay for
fund
it.
the youth
you know?
services
I'm just using
division.
that for an example.
You know, I don't know, instead of using the other money that we're talking about. I don't know.
What's the
Well,
benefit of,
At this point, do you wanna pull it? I mean, we can always deal with putting an article in October,
We could.
or you can keep it in and pass over it too.
I would prefer, my preference is to remove it.
Yeah, I think
At
I'm in
this
favor of
stage.
removing it right now, but I'd like the detail,
I would
I'll
think-
get you the,
you know,
Yeah.
on the
sure, okay.
on the process and what's been awarded and what it means to
So,
us.
someone wanna make a motion?
I move to remove the article referencing the establishment of a revolving fund for
Police equipment.
police equipment.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Motion made by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Delaney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
It's 4-1. I think we need a motion at this point to waive policy to discuss the timely issue of how we respond to the ABCC regarding the Seneca Cafe situation.
Sorry, Bob, I didn't hear you.
Waiving policy so we can discuss the Senate Cafe A, B, B,
Yeah,
C.
yeah,